Okay. Why is that? Okay. Test. We get any sound? Alright, we're just going to have to go echo. Let's do the echo. Test. Alright, we're on. Rolling. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is I have a desktop installation of SUSE Linux. Don't let that fool you. It can be used as a server, and whether you call it a server or not really has more to do with intention rather than software that's installed in your system. So, my goal for today is to, number one, install Microsoft's SQL server. I think they're calling it 17. That's currently in development into my system here, and then to set up an SQL server that's suitable to house a time and billing database for CPAs in CPA softwares, or used to be CPA softwares, now Prosystem's practice management. So I'm going to go through all the steps to the start. First, how to set up the server, and I'll talk about a few things that are important to know whilst just to understand why you're doing this. I think some of the vendor documentation is confusing, at least when it comes to Prosystems, the way they have you deploy things. Now, they're used to having people set up their SQL servers to have some Windows computer act as the time and billing server. There could be, okay, so this is going to be different, and they explain how CPA software works in general. In general, a staff member will sit at their desk, they'll open up a program, and they'll enter in the name of a client and the time, how much they worked on something, and a date, and they'll input it. Then they'll release the time, and the time goes to a central database store, and someone else in the accounting firm will look up the time and create bills from that time. This used to be housed in Microsoft Access. They've since moved this over to an SQL server. Microsoft Access is basically a file. If you double click on it, the program itself acts as a database engine, only running when necessary, and then you run your query, and it can give you responses. Like, there's a list of names and addresses. If you ask for all the names and addresses in California, it will pull up just California. That's what a database does. SQL Server is active and running all the time, but it has the same kind of capabilities, but the front ends usually aren't as user friendly unless they're made by a developer. So usually a developer that makes some software product. There's another software product for CPAs called Smart Practice Aids that are made by Thomson Reuters that also uses Microsoft's SQL Server, but they use the Express Edition. And the Express Edition is free to end users, so they could bundle it with their software, and then when they have their end users install their software, it installs SQL Server into their system, along with their front-end software that makes the SQL Server useful for whatever the account needs to do. I'm sure there's other industries where software gets deployed in SQL servers in the back end. Okay, CPA software has been around for a long time. It was bought out by Prosystem probably around 2005, and that's around the time we quit updating it. We just stuck with the regular version. Finally, it wouldn't install in Windows 10, so we decided to go back and use it. And I was regretting this because I've never set up an SQL server. It's really not that big of a deal, actually. Well, actually, I may have set up an SQL server, but not specifically not Microsoft's SQL server. And I didn't really expect Microsoft would have an SQL server for Linux, but they do, and they're working on one. And I've recently asked, I made an inquiry over at the page where they have their latest release and latest downloads, which we may visit. We probably will visit somewhere that's near where I made this inquiry. Asked, are you going to make an SQL server express for Linux? And will there be any licensing issues transitioning from this product? Because right now it's not even released as SQL Express yet. They're just working on one thing. Later on, they're going to break that one thing they're working into the parts of, I believe, because I don't speak for Microsoft, but I can't say what they told me, and the logical conclusion is what they're working on now is going to end up becoming SQL Express for Linux and SQL Server for Linux, all the products that they offer. And I asked if there'd be any trouble transitioning, and they said no, but even if I did, I could temporarily house my database somewhere else or move it back, or so you're not out of luck. Okay. So, let's go over the steps of what happens. First, we need to understand how this thing works. Most vendors don't like to expose their customers to behind the curtain, but it is important you understand how the process works so you really know what's being done at certain times to be able to troubleshoot if you have to. And I think I have this worked out, but over time things tend to break down. Solutions that worked 6 months ago might not work today. I'm going to do what's working today, and today's July 5th, 2017. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is, and I'm actually hopefully recording on this, capturing the whole screen. Pretty sure I am. Yes, I am. So what we're going to do is we're going to install Microsoft's SQL Server for Linux as it is right now. And we're going to use it in SUSE 42.2. Okay. I happen to be in the KDE3 environment. It looks awfully like a desktop, and that's what I like. But I use it a lot. But in whatever environment you are, you just have to open a console. I mean, you might be able to do this in Ubuntu or whatever. This is specifically to SUSE Linux 42.2. But if you're using something like Slackware, I'm sure you could work it out. It's just not going to be exactly the way I've done it here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to follow Microsoft's instructions, actually, as it were, when I first did this. And if I'm catching myself a little bit here. Sudo zipper, which is their command line package manager, SUSE's command line package manager, add repo. In fact, I'm going to just go to their page. No. Now, in the Windows world, you're used to, okay, how do I download this, and how many times do I click next, and am I done? So it's not going to be that simple. I'm just going to leave that right now. Okay, so try to go here. All right. Well, they want to bring me back. Okay. So. Okay, now first thing you're doing is there's a number of things to get from them, and I'll start out with, let's just get the public preview. I'm going to do Linux, and I'm going to do SUSE, and it says Enterprise Server, and what that means is when they tested this stuff, they tested it against a fresh install of SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. Doesn't mean it won't work, though. Alright, so I'm just going to copy and paste this. one line at a time. And so I'm going to type it, and I have my cheat notes here from what I did before. Ask me for root's password, as it always does. I add it, and it's added the repository. Next thing is there's a encrypted GPG signature to make sure you're getting your software from Microsoft and nobody else. It might ask me if I want to accept this. If it doesn't, it's only because I've done it before. I've actually done this before. I'm actually doing this so I remember what the hell I did. But if it does ask me any questions, then if it asks you yes, do you want to trust it, go ahead and trust it. So that'll be different between what I have here. Okay. Then there is a... I noticed this with their latest update. There is a missing ID map RPM, and I guess this is how... I'm going to see if this is how they sorted it out. I had to download the look for and download the RPM over at my other machine over there. Let's see if this works. I've never used SUSE Connect, and they don't have it. So what I'm really looking for is is this dependency here, and I'm just going to find it in RPBone, and it worked fine. SUSE RPM, that. No harm, no foul. Okay, so I think I'm going to just get this newer one here. What they're saying is this is located on the OpenSUSE 40 Lib NSS LD map, and maybe this is 42.2. In 13.1 I had to download the RPM. 42.2, let's see if I could get Zypper to install this. Of course, I'm not talking about Enterprise Server. I'm not using Enterprise Server right now. So, and I don't like, actually, I don't like sudo that much. I'm just going to super user, or switch user, whatever you want to call it. And this is going to be for I'm just going to use Zypper in edit paste. I don't know if this is on the repository, but if it is, it's good. Nothing. Alright, let's just download this freaking RPM. which everybody has to do except for the enterprise people. And I'll get it from ftppbone.net. Doesn't matter which one you get it from. There it is. Okay, where I am. RPM minus I lib in. I hope this didn't download to my downloads folder. I hate it when it does that. Now to the home folder. LBNSS. So what am I doing here? LIBS. Sorry. There it is. And that's what they said was missing, right? Yes, okay. There it is. Installed, no problem. Okay. Alright, so that's there. Now, I've added the repository, which means now I should be able to install software from Microsoft. They've compiled their software, they've placed it on their servers, and they've used, they place it on their servers in such a way and packaged it in such a way that it's designed to be downloaded and installed by SUSE Linux. The next thing they suggested to do was to before trying to install the other stuff, they want you to get the MSSQL package that Microsoft has. And I'm wondering why they don't have that RPM packaged. Maybe because it's so simple, but when it's not integrated with the package manager, you don't really know it's there. But let's just do that. Okay, so they say, actually, okay, let's just do this. What do they say here? SQL Server. And so it's going to install that. And actually, this is just about all you need if you want to do other fancy things, but we're doing this for Prosystem Package Manager. So let's say you have a server set up, you got OpenSUSE installed, you haven't even bought the enterprise version. You downloaded the CD for free. You installed it. It's 42.2. Okay. So far I've done everything you need to do to get your SQL server set up. So usually when vendors, just as a back note, usually when vendors supply their time billing software, you double click on the setup icon and it puts the SQL server somewhere for you, and it creates a database somewhere for you, and it's kind of like they bundle everything at once, but it actually did make it kind of messy. And what I'm also going to do for those of you that are in the same situation that I'm in and needed to convert a database from an older version to a newer version, you went through their service and they sent you back the database. I'll show you how to handle that circumstance and work around one issue that you have to work around, so it'll actually work if you have your SQL server housed in Linux. It'll work out this other day. There are some other things that you can get, but I think I'm going to pass on getting those things. Now they say okay, so especially for Prosystem Practice Manager, you need to remember the password that you pick in this next step. Okay, and it's going to ask, and since their vendor documentation suggests, in one of their docs here, that it's actually this simple. Also, I'm going to say this. If you're going to follow these steps, just follow these steps. If you start doing other things, adding other things to them, or even confuse yourself with the vendor documentation as to how to set things up, you might not have a very successful time. This is all you really need to do. You need to remember this the setting, and there's one part on their documentation where they have an SQL Server Practice Management login that we're not going to do. Actually, we're going to skip this step. Basically, what you're doing here, you're setting the password for the entire system for the user SA. Okay. They have a, let's chicken scratch here. Basically, they have a step 2 here. This is the way the documentation looks now. The user for the server system admin login is going to be SA. For the poor Windows users who don't know who that might be, it could be a little confusing. In this case, always SA. Okay. So I'm going to pick, looking again, I'm going to pick actually practice user 1, pound. The password, and it's very important to understand, this is one thing that had me going in circles for days. The password policy, before I type it in, for this installation of SQL Server is requires the use of special characters. One of the utilities that I'm going to use in this process, and I think needs to be used, but I'm not sure it needs to be used, precludes the use of a special character. And so if you have a newer version of SQL and you try to use Prosystem practice management and you try to create a user for the database, it won't be able to create it, and then you're wondering why you can't log in. Which is what happened to me, and I struggled with that for a day. So we're going to, I'm going to do as they suggest. Once again, look at it again. Practice user 1 pound. They don't suggest practice user 1 pound. They suggest practice user 1. Why? Because their password policy, vendor's password policy, does not include special characters. But if I use that, SQL Server would tell me to take a hike. Practice user 1 pound. Alright. So this is, I have 128 days left in the evaluation. What happens is Microsoft is been on a release cycle of 1 per month, as best I could tell. Towards the end of this month, I will update the SQL Server. Okay. It says that it's doing a few things. Number one, it started the SQL Server, but two, it's using something called System D to start it up. I'm just going to go into YAST here, which is the control panel for SUSE Linux. I'm going to go over to the Services Manager, and I'm going to look for the MSSQL server. I want to make sure it's enabled and active. And then I'll explain what happens during the Prosystem practice management setup. And you have to get another Microsoft tool or it will not work. MSSQL server, enabled and active. I don't even need to look. It's done. Every time I reboot, it will be enabled, it will be active. I want to check the status. I can also go in here because this is more desktop-ish. So I shouldn't have left. There's this show details will show the message that comes up when it runs. And then I'm going to discuss what actually happens. Okay. And I'm going to show the location of some system files that are important to understand. That's MySQL. Show details. Alright, so let's take a look at where some of these things are located on the system. Just so we know. Because you might get on the phone with support and they'll say, go to your C drive. And that's not where you're going to go. So you have to keep that in mind. You have to translate what they tell you into reality. Your reality. Okay, so if they get used to it, they'll have people be able to support this. So Microsoft has opted to put their software in opt. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine, probably actually expected. And var opt. Var is usually where things that are running go, and opt is where optional software goes. Okay, so we have MSSQL, bin, and then the libraries. These are part of the system stuff. I sure hope I'm going to go back up. I had some other things installed in here that are utilities that are not necessary. I'm not sure whether. In other words, if you're trying to follow these instructions and you look and it's not there, it doesn't mean that it didn't come down where it's supposed to be. It means that I have another tool installed that you don't need. But we're going to look for MSSQL server. There's a file list here. MSSQL bin. No. Okay, so this stuff all came with the package. So yes, you want to make sure you have all this stuff in there and installed. And I'm hoping there's going to be an opt. Okay, and that's it. The stuff that's in opt Microsoft are command line tools that can interact with the database. Theoretically, they would be used in place of Microsoft SQL Server Studio 17. The procedures I'm going to use will require you to have at least one place that has Windows installed, and of course, if you're using Prosystem practice management, you probably do, because that's the only way you're going to be able to use the client. Alright, the next place they have stuff is in their opt MSSQL, and they have, and I'm going to show the hidden files, and there's something called .system, and this is about as this pretty much mirrors the C drive, kind of, in some ways. See, there's a desktop folder. Stuff like that. This isn't really that important. It's just that you know it's there. And someone says, well, where's the C drive? I think this is part of it. It may be. .system is the equivalent of C:. I'm not completely sure. Data is where everything's supposed to be. And what should have happened and did is just, I don't know if it's just now, but when you do that MSSQL server conf procedure, it'll create a master database, a model database, an MSDB data database, a temp DB, and that's it. These other ones were from when I was messing around earlier and experimenting with us. So, I mean, at least you know I've looked at what I've done. These error logs are useful. So, if you're trying to log in, you're not having success logging in, you can look at the error log and it'll actually tell you in this log, and you sort it by time, useful. Window managers present, so you can have the time. If you go into the log directory, the latest one is probably the one that you're interested in. Okay. Especially if you're having trouble logging in. You did write down the password that you used during this step, right? If you don't remember what I said and you typed it, it's practice user 1 pound. You can do £1 if you want, but I do £1. Okay. So we have our basic thing set up, actually, as far as I know and I'm concerned. Okay, so the next thing I have to do, next thing that is to be done, and in any case has to be done, whether you're doing a new install or you're doing database update. Is you have to go into Windows and you have to use Practice Management Studio to access this database that you've just created. So I'm going to put my virtual machine here. I do hope I'm catching this on camera. I think I am. I'm just basically logging into Windows. Wonderful Windows.
Missed.
Okay, go. No, not Jack Morton, but let's see what I work for. Okay. I'm checking something. Yeah, working great. All right, so here it is. We're in Windows. This is great. OBS is awesome. Okay, so we're picking up the inside of my virtual machine. All right, so here's now to get this Microsoft SQL Management Studio 17. You have to go to the Microsoft site and you have to download it. I think a Google search will suffice, but we're gonna go through all the steps because I like doing that. All right, well, we're not gonna do that. I just screwed up my icon. Set ver, so server. SQL Server downloads Microsoft. You need the SQL Server Management Studio, which is this. It takes a while to download and takes a while to install. And guess what? Be happy. It works. And it's free, so you just save it, double click on, let it install. It takes a while. And hopefully your system has enough RAM and all that. It's pretty intensive for what we need to do with it. I will say that. Okay. You didn't see this part. Alright. You can double click on it, which I will, I hope. Now, the only difference in Linux and from Windows, okay, is that the name of these servers don't pop up automatically in the during installs of and another thing I'm going to mention. The names will not pop up automatically during installs because the SQL server in Linux doesn't broadcast its name by network name. It actually doesn't really broadcast its name. It has the requisite port open. You just need to know the IP number of the machine your server is running from. Alright, so if I want to find out the IP number of the server I'm running from, I just run ifconfig as root, and it tells me I'm 133. Let's go back into Windows of Wonders. Now, when you set up that password, you were setting it for SA. So, what was our password? Anyone? Bueller practice users. User. 1 pound. Pound. Or the password. Connect. That's the server I just set up. Wow, you say. Alright, now we're gonna, we're going to make a new login here under security. Okay, because there's going to be, and this is going to be important for, I sure hope I'm getting this whole thing. This is going to be important for... Why do I have two of these open? Guess I must have launched it twice. All right. The vendor suggests calling this login. And, okay, so the most important thing about this whole thing, if I just put front and center. No, I don't want that. We are not going to enforce password policies. We're going to call this practice user 1. And we'll use the password practice management one. Why are we using this password, this user? It's just the way SQL works. In other words, don't ask questions because I don't know. It's not that bad, but practice management 1, PRCTICEMGT1. Had I not unchecked enforced password policy, it would go, can't do that. Okay. So I should have one called practice user 1, which is going to be important, especially if you need to connect. If you only actually, it's only going to be important. No, it's going to be important in both cases, whether you need it to connect or not. I think. All right, so I think I'm done with this now. Now I have to discuss a few files that are important on here. Or I should. There are 2 files on each workstation, and there's one on the server, and they're called pmnet.ini. There's one file that's located on everybody's desk. It's called cpas.ini, and that basically points to the place that the server you're going to use is running from. What this basically means is that even though I have a workstation set up on this desk that I'm running from, and it's designed to connect to a completely different SQL database, and it's designed to grab run the workstation from some utilities that are located on a different file server than the one I'm going to use. I can recover from that by editing the following files. But the reason why I'm editing these files is if you've come here and you're having trouble after you've tried to set things up, or you've come here and you're having trouble after you've tried to convert, knowing about these files are essential to your ability to recover from the circumstances that you're in. Okay, so this isn't really part of the whole setup. It's just important to know. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up uninstalling this Prosystem practice management that I have set up here, and I'll end up resetting up the workstation from not the SQL server, but the file server install. So there's 3 components going on here. Okay, there's the workstation that has to have this client program running, but it depends on a running database. So there needs to be a computer that's running at all times. So if anybody happens to log in to the time and billing server, that data is available to the end user. But there's also a set of files and utilities that are on a file server, places where you would put your files. It's different. You wouldn't put your database in the same place you put your files. The database is a running process, really. You don't really seize those files. They access it indirectly, say through Management Studio, but you don't really interact with it without some other front end. when it comes to text files or things like that, it is true you have to have a front end like Word or something like that, but you can see the files, you can move them around. It's more malleable. You don't typically move a database file. A file server is a place where you put your files that everybody in the office can access. Someone at the desk over there can access a Word document I put on the server, or someone over there, or someone over there, or some, that's how data is shared. And some programs have a component of its ability to run with a client requiring it to have the software stored on the server. Let me show you where that is. It's in our circumstance. What I'm going to do for the demonstration is I'm going to set this up again, but on another network drive. This is a network drive. When it's done, the install will place all these folders and files inside of this subdirectory. Typically, by default, called practice, be whatever you want. And then there's some utilities to create a database if this is a brand new install for you. And there's another utility that allows you to attach a database if it's been converted and sent to you. And that's where the paths diverge. Okay, so right now I'm doing it under the assumption that you have an old database, or you have time and billing information that's been converted into an acceptable format for this program and sent back to you by the vendor. Okay. All right. So, of course, uninstalling the workstation setup isn't really part of setting it up. That's what I'm going to do here. Before I do that, I'll show you the location of the magic files. The first file, and there's one on the server. The first file is under, and this is just for you to know, we haven't moved on from our basic SQL setup yet, actually. Okay, our SQL is ready to go. Our Linux SQL is ready to go and interact with the vendor's product for the most part. So I'll walk you through where the things are. After I'm done with this procedure, and maybe I should just do it afterwards. Okay, so I'll install this. Okay, now the setup is really confusing. Okay. All right, and actually I'm going to check. Now before you do this, I would check to see if you had a previous install. How about that? You go into your users, your username, app data, roaming, product management, and to see this pm net.ini, they should have probably removed that during the uninstall or given you the option to do so, because if you keep installing and uninstalling, because why is this not connected to the database, I'll just reinstall. That won't solve it. And the reason why I won't solve it is because if it keeps pointing to, so I have a database called MAI32 located on a completely different server. Okay, so if I try to go back, it's just not going to work. Or I'm going to connect to the wrong server. I don't want to connect to the wrong server in this case. So I'm actually going to get rid of this. So I know it will come back if I do workstation setup from the other place. The other place, the other location is settings files are at is program data, Prosystem XF, practice management, and there's the PM net, which I probably show you the contents of that. It's pretty much like the other one. It says what server to go to and what database. The other one is more redundant. Let's get rid of it. CPASINI, which I'm actually going to print, points to the NetBIOS name of a SMB or Microsoft server share. Actually, the server name, share name, and then the directory, and then the directory under which it resides. If I were to change this path, or if you change the network name of the server, when this program tries to launch, it won't work anymore. So if you're having trouble using the time and billing software, and you change the network name of your server for some reason, it won't work. Also, you noticed, I'm going to print this for my own stuff, that I had IP numbers in the, I'll just delete this. I had IP numbers in the PMINI. The reason why I have IP numbers in it is because the Microsoft SQL server doesn't, for Linux, doesn't do local DNS caching, which is what that was, where it said the name of the share and the name of the server, name of the share, and then the directories in which it reside. Instead of having, in my case, Morton Associates, I would have the IP number there and it should still work. It actually does take some time to, not too much, but it does take some time to resolve it. It's a tiny bit more slowness. You'd speed up a little bit by enhancing that way. Okay, so now I'm going to pick a server to install this into, and it's going to be a different one, and I had here, this is actually a dummy install. I've done this before, which is how I know all this stuff. Then we end up putting it on my Western Digital. Cost $300 for a bunch of terabytes. It's pretty nice to have a Samba server and not have to set up a whole server, install a whole operating system. You get it for $300. That's not bad. Delete that. Okay. All right, so let's install the software. So they sent you they would have sent you the software via Software Delivery Manager. I happen to put all the software that we get from them in one place. And here's the latest one. So it takes a little while to think about it. Then it unzips and tells you, asks you, where do you want to put this stuff? And all it's really doing is placing a bunch of stuff on your C drive. It's unzipping some stuff. And then it launches the install to the server that I was just talking about, where the practice directory was, as one part of its setup after you pick to put this stuff on your C drive. It's not asking you whether you're going to install the server to the C drive, because you don't want to do that. You get the opportunity to pick your server later on when the next step goes through. So it was a little confusing with this also. There's a lot of confusing things about this documentation. It looks like it's a good software. It's probably the best time billing software there is for CPAs, but there are some confusing things about it. I will admit. All right, so where do you want me to dump this stuff? You go ahead. You know, install is a misnomer. There's not installing anything really. It is, as far as I know, temporarily placing some files on your hard disk. It's extracting stuff. and it's got a bunch of stuff that you don't need, especially when you're doing Linux. And the SQL Server or Express on a computer that is already struggling. If your computer's older and it's struggling to keep up, this could bring your whole system to a crawl, unfortunately. Which is another reason why you might want to have your SQL server installed, even if you have a Windows server on a central place somewhere else. Okay, so now we get the chance to install Prosystem Practice Management, and this is for the whole system. It's up to terms of the agreement. Okay, I'm not doing SQL Express. This time, put on my own thing. I like how it resets here. Now, by default, it wanted to be in Practice Management. Let me look and just make sure I don't already have a CPS directory. No, that's the wrong one. I don't. Okay. So it's going to create a CPS directory. It's going to put all the stuff you would need to set up workstations over here. And maybe some stuff that when the client runs from the workstation will interact with this to some limited degree. All right, hold on a second. All right. Stuff back down to size. Sorry about that, but I'm going to be advertising the password. Okay, so now it's going to say, what's the database server? In this case, to 168.0.133. And now it says database name. And this is the problem with their setup. They shouldn't have this part here. Because all this does is edit the, well, they can't. You have to remember the name you're going to give to your server. Now, the database, and that's in a completely different step. If you're going to set up a new server, call it anything you want. You just have to remember what you called it, because later on there's another utility you have to run, and you have to name it the same name you give it here. Otherwise, when you double click on your icon to launch, it'll say can't find the server and all this other stuff, and that's because the files I just talked about, the pmnet.ini files, are pointing to a database name that differs from the name you actually gave it. See, they don't. This is out of order. They shouldn't have had this here. I'm going to end up calling this, because I'm going to use the same converted file for my. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to first. I'm going to show both. I'm going to show the working system. Then okay, so I'm going to call this practice DB. Then I'm going to call this practice/management. doesn't mean you have to do that. You pick whatever you want, you just got to remember what the hell it is. And don't pick something weird that you won't be able to remember what to type in when you're going around all the desks and editing the PMNet INI file. You can, but you know, if you're a glutton for punishment. Alright, so I'm going to say install. Now it's setting up the workstation now, I think. Oh no, it's not. It's actually putting everything on the X drive. So I have to remember the name of that database. I'm actually going to make a database, show it running, and then I'm going to attach the database sent from our vendor and show how I get it to run. And then I'll show you why I use that utility later. Okay, so actually, yeah, I don't know why they had that. Basically what it did is populate the pmnet.ini file on the X drive, in my case, under CPAs, with the name of the server that I gave it that I already forgot. Okay, so we're done. Okay, so we have a circumstance where the basic set of files are on the file server. The utilities are there, ready to be used. Okay, so let's see if I even have. I'm not going to check that yet. All right, so let's go over to the there's the CPAs folder I just created. And see what I would do next. I'm now going to use a utility. I'm not sure if this is required, but I'm going to use a utility to make sure there's not going to be any problems. I made the practice user 1 account earlier, and under CPA's VPM CPA's utility, you're going to make me run a workstation setup before continuing? Are you kidding me? So now I'm going to have pm.ini files. All right. So it's very important that you remember. Okay, let's do workstation setup. Fine. All right, so now we're getting populated with these other files. I can end up having to, and I will anyway for my purposes. I'm not going to use this database, but end up having to change the pmnet.ini files at least 2 times because of the way they have this wizard. Maybe 3 if I don't remember what I called the thing in the first place. All right, so that is set up. Now we got CPAs, VPM. It's really difficult for them to provide support. All right, so now it sees, oh, here's a server. You know, it's got this thing, you know. If you have a Linux server, you're not going to get your thing coming up automatically. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it doesn't come up automatically. 192, 168, 133. In my case, you have to know the IP number where you installed your Linux server for Microsoft. SQL Server Authentication user is SA. What password did we pick? We picked practice user 1 pound. That's what I did. Hopefully you remember what you picked. Now we got all these, you know, we got this database name, we got this, you know, password to remember, all that stuff. Okay. All right, so there it is. Now, even though I got some look like practice this, practice that, what I don't have yet is an installation of the database practice/management. Practice/management. Isn't it fancy? All right, so next I'm going to do, so I'm going to assign a user account. I'm going to call it practice. If you didn't use the Management Studio before, this will not work. You had to use that, at least the way things are now. And because I unchecked the box that said enforce password policy, I'm going to be able to use their suggested password, which is practice management 1. That's the same password I used when I was in the SQL Studio. And I created the practice user and I did the password. So this is okay. Practice MGT1, so you know. Now, if you put £1 and you didn't do the SQL Studio and you press save, it'll look like it's okay, but it will do nothing because the server will silently reject it. You won't get an error back. Pick your database. And you know what? This doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter what database you pick. It's going to make you pick one. And let's see if I have to. It's really for the system. Please select the database. Maybe I jumped ahead of myself. See, this is really inconvenient. Actually I have to, sorry. I have to attach the database they sent to me, but if you made a new one, we have to create one, so can't do this yet. I'm going to cancel. Okay, so if you're just setting up your thing for the first time, go to Updates, Version DB, click on that. All right, so kept it. Database name, we're going to pick a name, and that name is going to be Practice Management, the one from before. Okay. Once I do this, then I can go back to the thing I was just doing, so sorry about that. The server admin login is always SA, and we picked, again, Practice MGT1 £. God, there's a lot of passwords to remember. Then we have SQL Server Practice Management Login. I think it's supposed to be Practice User. It's too much to remember. The problem with this thing is there's too many things to remember. No, that I forgot. I don't even know if this even matters. And I'm going to say this is Practice Management 1. Continue. If all goes well, that means I have the right password for SA. It matches the one I used before. It won't fail. Now, sometimes it'll say it can't communicate. You got to start over again until it works. You know what? I picked Practice User 1. Did I? I must have. So it was Practice User 1 £, not Practice. Okay. Now what? Encountered error. I've never had this happen. Perfect timing. Great. It could be because I have that other thing. Because I have this open. practice user 1 pound. Yeah, so it's there's a database there. Okay, now I'm going to do the add user. And I'll also have to do this if I attach. I think I have to do this if I attach the database that they brought in. Okay. And this is the user I set up before, which is practice user 1. Password for practice user 1 was practice management 1, no pound required, even though because I've had the SQL Studio fix this for me. Database, the one that I've just created. Save. Let's go back to the other one. Now I've done the workstation setup. I might be able to log in at this stage. Let's see what happens. Okay, so administration, the first time you log in, and this isn't very well documented, you just supervisor, nothing else. Version DB. I haven't had an error like that. It's gone. Okay, so if you're having problems like this, which I am, you can go into the base system. I believe I'm still in the root area. There's the data. You can just clean that sucker out. Bye-bye. All right, so let's go back into version DB. So we have to use the same database name, practice/management. We're going to have to recreate the practice user 1, and before we do anything, and we're going to have to get the basic databases to reset. I guess this is fine for troubleshooting. I have an idea that maybe I have to do that. This conf setup, what that does is it repopulates this data directory. I have to stop the instance. And I don't need sudo to do that. All right. Okay, let's do it again. Practice user 1 pound. Practice user 1 pound. Says you have 128 days left, fills these things up. You get all the basic databases. So what you need is, we need to create the database that we want, which would be practice/db, which is this thing, which keeps failing out. Problem, yeah, I don't think we have a problem. This won't be a problem, I don't think. So this didn't go smoothly as I wanted it to be. Oh man, this is... Okay, we're gonna create one. Nope. Now if I spell it any differently, too bad. I gotta start editing pm.ini files. Practice user 1. I'll call this practice. I'm going to call this practice user. User 1. And this practice mgt1. Now I may get stuck. I may not make this user, but I don't think it matters actually. This SQL, oh god, I have to go back to the SQL Studio. It won't. No, it will. It'll work. Let's see. No, actually, I do have to go in after. Oh, I have to make practice user 1 with practice management 1. That's what it is. Okay, so 2 instances. Damn thing, guy. Didn't I just pick practice user 1? Pound. I use practice management. There's so many of these things. Practice management 1. I just typed the damn thing in there. What the hell? Maybe with the caps lock on. You know what? I might have started. I don't think I started this thing. Get out. It should be running though. Yeah, if you don't, okay, I'm just going to redo this. Let's do it again. I forgot what the password is, and I don't want to waste so much time. Alright, do I have the frickin' caps lock on, first of all? Okay, cap lock or not. Practice user £1. Practice Alright. Let's try it again. Okay, so everything's in place. Okay. We're gonna do that, see what the status is of our says there's a blob. Okay. Alright. So it's supposed to be running. It's available just as if nothing happened. I get to start over again. So easy to start over again. Okay, SQL Management Studio Server. Practice user £1. Essay. Okay, we're going to do this again. PRACTICEUSER £1. Yeah, logged in. Alright, good. That's what we need to do. Okay, so we go to logins. We're going to do new login. We have to redo this again. This is going to be practice user 1. I'm not going to have the practice. So I'm doing practice management 1 without the pound because it's not going to enforce the policy. Okay. I've created it system-wide. There it is, available. Should be able to just get out. So this practice user 1, I just gave the password practice management 1, is the user I just created. SA is the system user I created at the command line when it came up. Then I typed in practice user 1. This better work. You know what? I bet you I can't have a database called the one I have. Practice last name. Okay, I'm just going to call it Practice DB, alright? Okay. So now I have to change my PM. I see things can go wrong so easily. Practice MGT will be the name of my database. SA. This shouldn't have crashed. It just shouldn't have. Okay. And the password for SA is practice user 1. Just to make it really confusing. Pound. Practice user. Practice MGT1. This is the way it should have gone from about 10 minutes ago. So you can't create a database with a little dash in it, otherwise it'll crash on you. Okay, just put firm name. year end, you know, if you can close the year last year. And it's going to say, what do you want to do? I guess if you're brand new, you know, just check everything off. Does it really matter? Or, you know, read the documentation. I don't know. I'm just assuming you're going to do all this stuff. Don't take my word for it. Now I have to log into Supervisor. And this is where you have Supervisor and the blank password. And this is your basic setup. And you're done, except for the fact you've changed your PM net.inis, because I foolishly created a database called practice/management that causes the install to crash. And I end up having to redo the whole damn thing. Are we seeking permission for me to run something? All right. So it just does supervisor, and it's not going to require you to log in or have, and you pick a new password. It's going to have all this crap in it. So why don't we make it really more confusing? Practice user manager 2. I don't know. Pick a password. Practice user manager password pound whatever you want to do. I'm just, you know, if it's too long. Passwords don't match. Well, screw you. Okay, I'll use one. One, two. Okay, that should work. And you're done. And make sure you create at least one person. Although I think admin, you have to remember that password to log in and never get back in again. You're ready to go. You're rolling. All right, that's how you do the basic stuff. Now, how do you upgrade this? Let's say you sent your thing off. You have time billing, they've updated the database, they sent it back to you, now you want to attach it. Okay. You know, you have a database with data in it from some other time and place. Okay, so practice user is already set up. You set up according to the policies. The password policy, which doesn't have a pound sign in it or whatever, you know, one of these special characters, percentage, exclamation. I'm going to close this, but oh yeah, but make sure when you're done with this, there's three places you have to check. Okay. First of all, the database, which I now forget, but I could cheat and look and see what it's called here. It's called practice. That actually created, and then it just failed out. All right. It's called practice MGT. You need to make sure that, first of all, on my the client desk I've worked on so far, any of them, go to the users, app data, roaming. It's the file I talked about before, practice management, PMNet, edit, and the database is not practice/management. It is that. And I don't know why they got that in lowercase. I guess the case doesn't matter. All right, that's one of the places. So it's under user, and then sorry, under program data. That okay. So I have an IP number for the server. If it, you know, if you're using like a NetBIOS name or something like that, if you're in Windows and you're you change the name of your machine, that's the server. You know, computers have names, if you didn't know that. Mine happens to be Discovery Guest. Say I was a server and I changed my name from Discovery Guest to Please Discover Me. None of the clients would be able to connect to it. Okay, so I have to have this right. Let's just get back into the save, dude. Alright, I'm just closing it. Save, yeah. What? How come that disappeared? Wait, what's wrong here? Don't save. What's the deal? Edit. Access is denied. What the hell is that? That's really lame. Okay, so I got that thing back. Now I need to go back, log as administrator. Password number 55. I'm back in. Okay, so I'm done. So if you're new, you're done. Now if you're in conversion, okay, let's deal with the conversion. Alright. Number one, what needs to be placed, you need to have on the file system of the server, you need to have, in fact, you just drop it right in here, actually. So, you know, if it was email, Dropbox, whatever, you can move it in here, and you're going to make sure that the owner in the group is MSSQL. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to attach the database. All right, so go over here. Right. All right, so this came back from our vendor. Paste it. Of course, I'm root. That's why I'm able to do this. Really early in this whole thing, I double-clicked on the administrator, in other words, but it's called root. I clicked on this thing, and I put my password in. And what that allows me to have, I have write access to the whole system. Okay. This is the owner's root, the group's root. I'm going to do it this way because I got KDE, and that makes life easier for me. I'm going to make the user and group, you know, part of the ownership of the user's MSSQL and the group's MSSQL. Okay, done. Do I need to restart my SQL server? I don't think so, but we'll find out, won't we? Okay. Now, so okay, so this just come in. We opened up the MSSQL Server Management Studio. If we have not yet created what the hell one which one I made? Oh my God, practice you. Yeah. It was practice user 1. Yeah. If you've not yet created practice user 1, and not enforce the password policy, but you have to do that. Okay. Now notice it's got this database. Just delete this. Yeah, it's just a waste. Alright, so I have my practice management, but I don't have the MAI32 they've just sent us. So I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the database. And if you didn't change permissions, you're not going to be able to attach it. Why are the errors happening when I happen to sit down? Okay, let's try it again. Maybe I have to restart the SQL server. I'm going to do that. I think I had to shut it down and then I have to restart it. Procedures are extraordinarily similar in SUSE Linux 13.1. Start, stop. Okay. And I probably should have waited to show details, but we'll find out. Not that bad. I should have pressed OK. Show details before pressed OK. All right, MS. That really didn't cost that much time. Enabled inactive. Show details. All right. That's what I expected. All right, let's look at Windows and connect. Attach database. Add. I've never seen this problem. What the hell's going on? You can also try to use their thing, but it will work. It will work. Okay. I haven't had this problem before. Of course, I'm, sharing this information without any warranty that it's going to work. So it's up to your own yourself to Yeah, it's done that before too. There we are. I'm using the wrong thing. Oh, I think I have to do the practice. No. It's out of order. Is this being firewalled now? What the hell's going on? Well, I know how to do that. Permissions are right. I don't. Let's look in the logs. After I deleted that from using the SQL Studio, I mean, these are brand new problems I haven't had before. I'm just gonna assume it started. It's like it's not connected or something. Getting extreme. What the fuck is that? conditions have to be something. Okay, I don't want to be executable. Rewrite, is that it? Could have something to do with the file system. They only support a couple of file systems. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, come on. I need to find the SQL command for attach because it's getting annoying. Alright, so I haven't explained how I got SQL command installed, but we're going to do this. Okay. SQL. Users SA minus P is practice. M. For the practice user, I think it's practice user 1 pound. I. What happened to the library of DBC? Okay. Is that what's going on? Doesn't make any sense. It was working fine. Yeah, you have to have this installed. So how does that work? They also had instructions for making symbolic links. I forgot. Oh my god. It's too much to remember. System control, restart, and it's supposed to be a lot easier than this because really strange. I might have had resilient ODBC running. Give me a break. Any kind of all right, I gotta look this up. was the only way to do it. I mean, this was good. It's going to be the end of it, basically. Attach it, and then you just log in, and everything's good. Could be because I'm using the XFS file system, but that doesn't make why. I mean, they support Btrfs. Why the hell would they? I've had success before, and I just dropped the damn thing in there. Do I have disk space? No. The problem is I have to have I won't even do that. Hell. I think it's disconnecting. closure, whatever that means. Alright, you know what? Start over again. Okay. Could be because I did that. Practice user 1 pound. I had stuff already installed in here. God damn it. Maybe I need to add some of the components. Yeah, I should just have a command line. I don't remember it ever looking like that. I think it might be an issue with the file system. There's some kind of problem when you start over again for reals. Started. Just did everything I've done before, just right there. There it is. Oh. So now I have an SQL Server agent. I see. Okay, so now we have to do. Let's just attach this database. What? I don't even remember what this is supposed to be. Practice user practice. What the fuck? I think we're some kind of Microsoft ODBC. Why wouldn't this... Here's the latest release. Alright, I'm just downloading it. Tired of waiting. It's getting annoying. SQL Server 3634. Restore backup fails. Yeah. What backup? Wipe the whole goddamn thing. It's gotta be. Or I'm missing some freaking library. Lib ODBC. That's what it is. Oh my god. All right. Yeah, create some symbolic links. ln-s user library 64. Don't know why I forgot this. That's the file specified. Basically, it's looking for a file, specific name. Oh, come on. I should try this SQL command, shouldn't I? Alright, for everybody else in the world except for me that's broadcasting, when you attach it, it works. We're done. So trust me, it works. Yeah. Can't open library ODBC driver 11. last shot, let him stop me. Bong. Yeah, whatever. What? This might be it. Too many things to remember. Or I think I did nothing. Permissions issue. There you go. Alright. Let's try to log in. Just going to change the PM to INI. That's not really the way it's supposed to go, but to make sure I have that user added though. Oh, give me a goddamn break. That makes it even worse. That. Make sure I got practice user in there. There, practice user 1, got that. Alright, let's see if this thing will work. Purchase user 1. That did not go the way it's supposed to go. Alright. Yeah. Here you go. So, I don't know what the fuck was going on with this server management studio, but that's how you do it, I guess. It's supposed to just attach, and after you have the practice user, you log in, you're good. But in this case, oh wow, that took a long fucking time, and nothing I tried worked. A couple things I did skip in the middle there is the Unix ODBC tools I did towards the end. symbolic links. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it was the file system, because I have XFS on there. But I just created a new database with the same name that was supplied, and it just chucked it out along with this log file. And I didn't even bother to check if it had permissions. Yeah, so it's got the right permissions. MSSQL. So now I just need to get my system to actually go back to doing the system that I want it to go use. Let's say you want to change to another CPA software. And I gotta remember the name of the one we're actually using. Oh, it's the same. This is critical right here. What was that? It's 30. That was just ridiculous. How that's stupid shit. Like it's gonna stop anything. What's the name of the share? Like that as practice. The hell? Alright, so there it is. Okay, so now I'm going to check, see if the other one, let's prove this works. For the ones I want to ultimately use in here. Oh, come on. Doing seriously. Where'd the other one go? There it is. I'm just doing this to prove that we have two different databases going here. Oh, that's why. Oh, that's right. How's it gonna work? What the fuck do you mean? That's because it's not the share. Yeah, come on, man. That's not the share name, that's why. Yeah, dude, why is it gonna be a big fucking deal to change a file? There we go. There should be no time entered in for today, and there we are. So that's it. So you might have that error not set up correctly if the share isn't right, and that's the name of the share. So despite taking a long time, not looking very convincing, this is actually how you set it up. And Microsoft has wanted to have an equivalent kind of product out for Linux, and so they're working on it. And again, when I asked them, they said they would release SQL Express for Linux, and that that's the free version, and I shouldn't have any problems transitioning. So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to get out of this. Now I got to get my stuff back the way it was. Yeah, so let's go through this big formality. It's supposed to be that's the share name. I forgot to put the share name in, and then the path. I'm gonna stash in here. Oh, you gotta be administrator. Yeah, of course I'm administrator. And then last login, finish. So it was frustrating to watch, but I'm doing this also so I can document what I've done. And I'm still not sure why that thing wouldn't attach. And I probably didn't follow Microsoft's instructions to the T on this occasion. There we are. And we're done. Hopefully this recorded. God. Alright, I'm going to end because I'm done with my computer presentation.